Okay, so I've got my palette set up with a big portion of white and just a little tiny bit of the two colors that made my lightest undertone. So make sure that your palette is labeled underneath with your last name and your period. I put 4th because that's my prep. Okay, so it's underneath there, super visible, clear. And then you'll also have a piece of tin foil that will have your name and period nice and neatly written, nice and big in the middle. So at the end of each day, what you're going to do is put a paper towel on top. You're going to spray the palette, probably not over your painting, maybe by the sink or over the trash can, so that the paint stays nice and moist. And then you're going to carefully wrap this around your palette. You only get one piece of tin foil for the semester, so I suggest that you take care of it, or you can bring in your own. Okay, so there we go. So at the end of, or at the beginning of the day, I carefully unwrap it because I do not want to rip it. And then I lift this over. So this paper towel not only keeps the paint moist and from drying out, but it also protects your foil, because if the paint were touching the foil and it dried to it, the foil would just rip right off. Okay, so it has a dual purpose. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just mixing that lightest sort of undertone color first. This is super, super light. My picture of my eyes in my phone, so I'm actually looking at a mirror right now over here to sort of match that color. So I need a little bit more. So I'm gonna take a clean brush and I'm just gonna scoop what I need so I can pull it in. Again, clean brush. Okay, and then these are off to the side. Put that in the water. I also have another paper towel here that is just for wiping off a brush that's too wet. So once I clean my brush in the water, just sort of flick your wrist around like the song, flicker your wrist, and then dry it off. Okay, these brushes are flat and they are of hog hair, so they're really coarse, and that's a good brush to use for tempera paint. But I also have here a much smoother brush that's also a flat brush that's going to help me smooth out the layers once I have some of the paint on there. So again, I'm just sort of matching that lightest hue, my skin tone. I don't want to get too dark. Okay, once I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start brushing it into my painting. I can have a little bit of water on my brush, not too much though, because the paint is already wet. Something that I suggest you do too is have a scratch piece of paper so you're not painting the table, and that way you're not having a big cleanup at the end of the day. So again, you want to make sure you mix enough of it so you can get that whole thing in there. I may not have mixed enough. So notice how I'm kind of scooping it in towards the edges. I'm just gonna paint the table, clean up later. With this paint, you can get away with painting the table, but with acrylic later on in the school year, you would need to have something underneath. This paint you can actually clean up pretty easily. So sometimes little hairs might get in there. Just kind of scoop them up. Or you can take them off once the paint's dry. So you need a lot of paint mix for this first one. You also don't want to waste paint. So please don't waste the paint. Take only what you need, but mix enough of it. That's why we practice with those squares first. And we're going right over the eyebrow. Because if you look at my picture, there's skin underneath all these little hairs. That's why we didn't draw in the eyelashes yet, too. Almost there. Have to mix a little tiny bit more here. So we do not start with your darkest skin tone, okay? Start with that lightest skin tone. And this is your step 1. This part is skin 2, so I gotta make sure I don't forget to paint my water line. My tear duct is skin, even though it's a little bit pinker, we're just gonna get that skin tone in first. Same with this water line down here. I know it's a little bit pinker, but we're just getting that undertone. If you want to use your smaller brush for this, any little details, use the tools that you're comfortable with. Alright, so that is the first layer. Take this off and show you a little closer up here. Okay. It's a pretty thin layer. That's how we start it.